today, the greatest single source of wealth is between your ears. Brian Tracy. And greetings, my peak performer. How are you doing today? I am super, super excited. So I hope you're as excited as I am. It is episode 139 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter. Today's episode is with, yay, let me even say yay before I introduce the name, Patrice Washington. Patrice is an award-winning author, transformational speaker, hope restoring coach, and media personality. Patrice got her start as your favorite personal finance expert, America's Money Maven, having tremendous success with her mindset approach to personal finance. She, of course, has since expanded her brand and mission, encouraging women to chase purpose, not money. I am so looking forward to having this conversation on redefining wealth and what really is that? What does that mean? So welcome, Patrice.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before I dive in, I have a little question for you, right? So have you touched the Jamaican soil yet?
Have I touched Jamaican soil? Yes.
Oh,
I've been twice.
You have been twice. Where in Jamaica have you been?
I visited Kingston
Yay.
and I visited wherever the cruise let me out one time. I don't remember.
Montego Bay,
Montego Bay. Yeah,
Bay.
I went dirt bike riding with my husband and he got me completely muddied and soaked from head to toe on our anniversary. Yeah.
Okay. So you spent your anniversary in Jamaica. That is like the best gift ever. Ever. All right. What's your favorite part of Jamaica though, from your memory?
I guess it would have to be that day that we went dirt bike riding in Montego Bay. And we had so much fun. And more than anything, it was coming off the heels of a very difficult year for us. You know, one of those years, I know you're married, so one of those years where you're like, I don't know if we're going to make it till the end of the year. And our anniversary was actually December 29th. So to be there, to be together, to be restored and having fun in such a magical place was a great memory.
Oh.
Even though he got me soaked from head to toe with mud, but still.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's awesome. And yeah, marriage is something, isn't it? Oh Lord.
A daily decision, girl.
I mean, that could be a whole nother topic for discussion. But anyways, so, I'm just going to Patrice. I'm not even going by any script talking with you because with you is just so much and, so much conversation that, so much nuggets I know that we're going to get. So let me just tell my audience a little bit of what inspires me about this, what we're about to have and what we're about to do here is that, of course, we met in person at Podcast Movement. Yeah, in 2019, this very year. And you did a keynote and it was just, I'm somebody who, I'm purpose driven. I always like to think that, I'm on a path and I know where I'm going, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But just listening to you speak and your honesty and your inspiration. I mean, I knew about you before, but it was the first time that I was ever tuned into you like that. Right. And so for me, it was inspirational and I'm glad that we met.
I am too. It was perfect.
Yeah, and so another interesting thing is that as I began to listen to your podcast, I realized that your heart is just so much of what I'm about. And listening to some of the people that you talk to, which I'm going to be talking to some of them soon. For example, I'm just putting out there to speak to Lovey. Lovey was a speaker at Leadercast Women in October, and I hosted Leadercast Women in Jamaica. So she's going to be speaking, and then I realized that she's also speaking at an event that I'm speaking at in California next year. So just so many good stuff. And then I recently learned about Brandy Harvey because I'm not one that is tuned in to the whole I'm not really that tuned in, right? So I didn't even knew that Brandy Harvey existed until recently. And then your live taping, so the last conversation I listened on your podcast was that with Brandy, and it was just
so good.
Mind blowing.
It was so good. Brandy is one of my good girlfriends, and we've known each other for about 10 years now. And a part of watching her kind of blossom is a part of what I talk about in Redefining Wealth. Like all the work that we talk about. So you alluded to the fact that wealth is really between,
The
your
ears.
ears, as Brian Tracy says. And one of the first things that I've always been very passionate about is helping folks change their mindset, especially people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like in mainstream, there's this idea that people should just jump into all of these tasks and all of this busy work. But if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be able to sustain that. It'll be busy work, but it won't really be helping you change behavior. And so, when I look at Brandy, she is the epitome of what redefining wealth means, because we focus on these 6 pillars. And of course, for me, she represented the fifth pillar. So she was talking about the impact that therapy has had on her life and how she takes care of her physical body. And I just feel like, again, watching her journey, I've seen her go through all these pillars. So it's no wonder that she is where she is. Like, it makes complete sense to me. But wealth is truly so much more about money and material possessions,
Mm-hmm.
and when you see that light shine on people, you have to understand that there's so much more work going on in the background than you see. And that's what the wealth
Absolutely,
is.
absolutely. And so even the title of her book, I mean, it's not about her or whatever, but even the title of her book, Breakthrough Soul Differently, like, wow, I'm so it's fired up right now to go get the book, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
go get the book. And you said something in that conversation which really, really resonated with me. And it's something to the effect of, when you're so resilient and you get knocked down so many times, on your way up, you don't even stop sometimes to process the emotions that accompany that resiliency and that moving on to the next thing. So I think within the whole context of redefining wealth, let's dive into that thought a little bit,
Yeah.
and how important it is really for us to pause and process our emotions and to
Yeah.
feel, because sometimes we don't, like, sometimes, like, I literally don't feel. I just know that I got to do something, I do it, and I don't really feel.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I've been working on more and more, is giving myself permission to feel. Like, it's okay to feel the feelings, right? You don't want to stay in it forever, but you have to, I say take the L, but that's really learn the lesson. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a loss. There's always a blessing or a lesson, right? And so redefining wealth was born really out of my own experience with losing everything in the recession. So, by 25, I had a 7-figure business that I started during college and made a lot of money. My now husband, then boyfriend, we started this business together during my senior year in college. We did really well early on, and then the recession hit, and we went from this 7-figure business to literally scraping up change. And like many of us, when life happens that way, you go into survival mode, right? And you were just trying to figure out one day to the next. And so, to make a really long story short, I ended up having, after losing everything, having money stolen, having people betray me, like homes foreclosed, cars repossessed, having this moment on the bathroom floor. I call it the come to Jesus, where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was tired of everything that I even attempted to do. Like, I felt like doors were just being slammed shut in my face. And I'm like, but God, I'm a good person. And I've operated a good business. I did things in integrity. Like, I don't feel like I was the cause of all of this. Like, what is going on? And bawling, snotting, crying on the bathroom floor till I heard what I call the Holy Spirit say, get your Bible. And I got my Bible. I ended up on the scripture, Proverbs 17:16. And it said, what good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? And that was the first time it hit me, Heneka, that I have been very smart. I was very book smart. I went to a great university, Dean's List, got, licensed at 21, certified at 22, all these great, things. So I was great at information, right? But I didn't have wisdom, which is the application of the information. And so changed my life. Like, I got up off that floor and I was like, God, I think I need to share this with other people. Like, because I can't be the only person who grew up thinking if I go to school, get a good education, get a good job, I'm going to be fine. Like, I didn't know that there was even a possibility that I could not end up fine, right? Because I did the steps.
You
I
did the
did the
right thing. You did the right thing.
I did
Yeah.
the right thing. So I made a pact. I was like, God, I just want to go everywhere I can and tell everyone that this journey is not about chasing money. It's about seeking wisdom. Because if you have wisdom, you can always get it back. And, the part of me that felt like a complete failure and embarrassed and guilty for losing it all and just ashamed, that little voice was like, who's going to listen to you? You're broke. What do you mean? You're chasing the power man down, trying to beg him not to turn the lights off, trying to tell him to turn it on or your baby's milk is going to spoil. Like, who's going to listen to you? But I also, on the other shoulder, had that angel that was like, you lost all your money, but your mind isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind isn't bad. What's between the ears matters more than what's in your bank account. You have to believe that. And that was the beginning of just starting over. So that was 10 years ago. That was March 2009. And literally from there, started a blog, started writing for magazines, and all these things happened. But to bring it up to speed, what really happened was I wasn't just working on budgets and credit reports, right? I couldn't just look at my credit every week or, look at my budget all day long. I had to do work on myself. And that's what redefining wealth is. Redefining wealth is so much more than, I tell my audience, it's more than money and material possessions. It's about well-being. So yes, while I was rebuilding and living on my brother's couch in Atlanta for 3 months, and my husband took a job at Taco Bell after the tailored suits in the world traveling, he took a job at Taco Bell just to get health insurance. What are the things that we were doing on the way to being restored and rebuilding? And that's what redefining wealth is. I started to get very laser focused on my well-being, like my physical and mental well-being, because it hit me. If I'm saying that God has given me this vision, how can I abuse the only body I get? Right? Like, I got to take care of myself. And it was tempting to be more on the hustle and grind tip, because that's what we hear. As entrepreneurs, it's like, you got to be up all night. Like, if you're asleep at 3 a.m., you're losing, and people are going to get your clients and your customers. And it took one trip to the emergency room to teach me, nah, man, what good is that if you're not here to enjoy it?
Wisdom. And so you pretty much, like, you've read my mind, because I was going to ask you not so much, what you had to do, but who you had to be in that process. And I would love to hear a little more about, and what friction, and if you noticed that if there was any friction going on at that time.
Oh my gosh. So much friction. I mean, one of the big things for me as an entrepreneur is I had to become a marketer. Right? Like, I had to understand how to still show my value and express my value and not get caught up in what was in my bank account, because I did not have it yet. Right? And so it's like, how are you out here talking to people about basic personal finance? That was the constant conversation, like, in my head when you are experiencing these things.
You're such a liar, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's imposter syndrome.
Right.
You're like, oh, I'm an imposter. And I had to keep reminding myself, but you know it. Like, it does not take away from the fact that and that there are people who have no idea. So even if you are in a place of struggle right now, there is someone, you're struggling not from a place of like
lack of knowledge, right?
Lack of knowledge,
because
right?
without the people perish, right? And,
yeah. Right. So it's like there's people out there who have no concept. And this is one of the things that I was sharing with my audience one day. I said, you know what? We believe that we need to be perfect before we can be a blessing to other people, before we want to give ourselves permission to help other people. And the truth is, no one requires you to be a 10. No one requires you to be a perfect 10. I said, listen, I might be a 7 at best right now. I don't know, because I don't know the fullness of what's going to happen in my life. So on my spectrum, I may be a 7. The only thing that I'm called to do in this season is to help the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6 take the next best step and move up. That's it. If you are 3, there are 1s and 2s out there that are not sleeping at night because they're waiting for you to give yourself permission to not.
Wow. And that is just absolutely perfect and profound, because sometimes we think, again, the imposter syndrome. Who am I to be a coach? Who am I to be a speaker? Who am I to be whatever? Not recognizing that though you may not be a 10, you can actually help others to come up to wherever they need to come up to. And so for a long time, people have been seeing me as a coach, for example, Patrice, and I'm like, no, I don't want the label. Like, no, 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 and I've been fighting it. And it wasn't until this year that I guess I started coaching last year, and I was doing it in other ways, but really from a formal perspective, calling myself a coach and start walking into that thing, because I realized that I have been robbing people of what they deserve for a very long time. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it because I was, what are people gonna think? You're a coach. You're not even yet certified, but you're a coach. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have the skills. I have experience.
Yeah, but you hit on something. What are people going to think? And that is the thing that keeps so many of us back, right? And keeps us from playing big. And the truth is, nobody is thinking about you. That's the real thing. Like, we create all these stories about what are they going to think? They're going to say this, they're going to say that. Actually, they're so caught up in their own imposter syndrome, they're not even worried about you.
Yeah.
They're worried about, they're having that own conversation for themselves. What are people going to think if I try to do X, Y, or Z? And so once I released this idea that people even cared, girl, the world opened up. It was like people don't care as much as you think they do.
Yeah.
And the few people who have something to say, I have found that the people who attack your vision the most, it's really from a place of not understanding their own vision. Like, they don't have a vision, so they don't have nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, right, if you're going to talk behind my back, the point is you're already behind me. I'm moving forward. So you can talk behind my back. I'm gone, right? That doesn't matter to me. So it's like the people who do have something to say, if they're not your advocates or folks who are saying something because they truly have a desire to just support you and give you, constructive criticism or give you feedback that's going to help propel you, they're a non-issue. So why would you not be doing what you need to do? I focus more on the people who I'm called to serve because I know I'm blessed to be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to focus on them.
Absolutely. And who are some of those people that you've called to serve, as you would define it?
I know that I'm called to serve, in particular, high achieving women who have made their entire lives, like I once had, about wealth building, whether that be climbing the corporate ladder or building this entrepreneurial empire. And they're trying to do the work to leave a financial legacy and all this stuff. And then they forget themselves in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Because redefining wealth, again, is not just about money and material possessions. The original definition of wealth is well-being. And so my whole mission is to teach women in particular, what good is all of that stuff if you're not going to take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, physically, and your relationships? Because the very people you say that you're doing it for, if you're never present to be there for them, what good is that?
Mm-hmm.
I had to have that realization for myself at one point with my daughter, where I realized I was present because I worked from home, but I wasn't present because I wasn't paying attention, right? I was just physically there. And what good would it be for me to be going to colleges and all these schools and having all these young girls saying, oh my gosh, Miss Patrice, Miss Washington, I love you. You did this, you did that. And the very child that I was called to raise doesn't know.
Wow, wow. And so, what are some of those growth inhibiting factors that you have seen, in those women that you're coaching, some of those persons, that are preventing them from living their truest potential, their purpose?
Um, mostly chasing money. Well, even from a perspective of, because we were groomed to chase money,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even when our parents were saying things like, oh, you got to go to school and get a good job and do this, they were dropping hints in there that said, if you go get the money and as long as it's bigger and better and brighter, you're going to be fine at any cost, right? So I'm Belizean, and I know in my family, it was not about do what makes you feel good. It had nothing to do with like following your purpose. It was nothing about, oh, do what you're passionate about. Like, my dad was like, be a lawyer, a pharmacist, a doctor, an architect. Like, there was like an engineer. There was like 5 professions you could choose from, and that was it. So when I went down, I did business in undergrad, but when I went down this path, very disappointed. Even though I was making money, there was no concession for also being happy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned in my studies with financial psychology is that when people are unfulfilled, they tend to mismanage their finances anyway.
Whoa,
So,
wow, whoa, whoa.
yeah,
Financial psychology. Yeah. I want to hear more about that. Well, yeah, continue your
yeah,
train of thoughts.
yeah. So, one of the things that I've learned just with financial psychology, right? Like, what makes us do the things that we do with our money, even though we're smart enough to do something else. Even though we're smart enough, we get the information, we have the education, and then still emotionally we go and make different decisions. Well, why is that? Well, when you're unfulfilled in the thing that you do day in and day out, it starts to create a void. There is like a gap in your soul that widens every single day that you are doing something that you were not born to do.
Mm,
Period.
mm,
Or you may be using the right gift in the wrong space. And so it makes you question the gift, which also feels like a big burden, right? What most people tend to do, Heneka, is try to fill that gap with stuff.
mm,
So they go, oh, but at least this allows me to drive this car. At least this allows me to send my kids to this school. At least this allows me to live on this side of town. But you are hurting and suffering in silence, and you are hiding behind the title and the great job, the great
mhm,
business, the social media profile, but you're unhappy. Excuse me. And so when people are unfulfilled, they mismanage their finances either through upgrading to stuff that is still not going to fulfill them, or buying people, because we buy people.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So we want to be the savior in the family, so we're paying for everything,
mhm.
not cheerfully either. we're
You're
not
not a
even
cheerful giver.
we're not even being a cheerful giver, but we like for people to need us, because even though I'm maybe being tolerated and not as celebrated in my career as I want to be, at least these people need me over here. So my siblings, mom and dad, or the cousins, or the folks that are always asking for stuff, and so I step in and I'm the savior for them all the time instead of allowing them to figure out their own process and their own purpose. But now they're line items on my budget, and I'm saying I should have more money. I should have more money saved. I should be more prepared for retirement. Well, you can't, because you're buying people.
Mm,
How are you going to do that?
yeah.
So that all stems from not really being fulfilled, or working in your purpose. And when you're not doing that, it's very hard to set your financial priorities.
Hmm. You mentioned about this whole phenomenon of going to school and getting a good job, and well, getting a good education so that you can get a good job. So that seemed to be a Western phenomenon, of course, because even in Jamaica, and that is why the entrepreneurial you started initially, right? So I started it on radio. I had it on radio
Mm-hmm.
for 3 seasons, and then it moved into a podcast. And it started on the premise of we are told that we need to go to school, get a good education so that we can get a good job. And when we find a job, then we become unfulfilled because we're not getting the right benefits or something. And the cycle continues. So you leave that one and you get another job, kind of a thing. And so the entrepreneurial you was born to say, look, you can fulfill your purpose through entrepreneurship, and just recently I've added leadership to it. So it seemed to be a Western thing. And the minority who go against the grain, sometimes we are seen as crazy, right?
Oh, yeah.
What
Why
are
would you do
yeah,
that?
yeah, why would you do that? Like, don't you have any ambition?
Yeah.
Right. What
I
is
definitely, I ran across that. I left college and did not apply for a job or apply to grad school. And those last few months before you're getting ready to leave college, that's what everybody asks you. That's what your friends ask, teachers ask, professors, your parents, over and over again. Where have you been applying? Where you? And when I tell my dad that I did not apply to one job or like apply to one school. I was very clear that I was going to keep doing my business that my dad thought was a senior project, and that I had lost my mind.
hmm,
And it wasn't until a couple of years later when he came to my office and I had several employees and it was a brick and mortar business and he could see it, that he was like, oh,
oh, you were
oh,
onto something.
you're okay, you may be onto something, right? So it's crazy. I mean, to this day, to be honest with you, every once in a while I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, if you don't question like yourself, sometimes I tell my mom, can you pray for me that somebody will offer me $1 million job? like where I could just go do my thing and go home and disconnect, because as an entrepreneur, your
You're
mind is
always
always
connected.
going. And I am the business, right? So I take me everywhere I go, and I am the business even when I don't feel like being the business, right? Um, so that's interesting. Yeah, it's crazy. You got to be crazy. But that's why I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. And I think that people need to really be clear that you can use your purpose inside of someone else's job if it's the right fit, where you get to use your gift and you're compensated well and you feel celebrated, not just tolerated, right? Like, yes, because this is not for everyone.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to one of your podcast episodes I was listening to, and it had something to do with, what we've been taught. I think you were talking to a minister, and what we've been taught about money, and what the church believes about money, and the disconnect. And so the mis-socialization, the misinformation that we've been given over the years, and how that affects our wealth. I want you to expound a little on that, because that may be all we have time for, unfortunately. So,
Mhm.
and bring that into, bring home as to what does redefining wealth really mean, although you've already alluded to it.
Well, so at Redefining Wealth, we have these 6 pillars, right? Faith is the fourth pillar. And people would always ask me, well, why isn't faith first? You said you're a Christian woman. Faith should be the first pillar. I said, no, because I know my people. My people want to use faith as a crutch and then not do the work. The reason it's the fourth pillar is because the first 3 pillars require you to do the work. If you believe that faith without works is dead, right, then you have to show up and take personal responsibility, and participate in your own rescue. Because you can't just pray about it and set it and forget it. Like, you should give God
Can you
something to.
please say that again? Because Jesus, like you're not of God if you say that in certain circles. You know that, right? You're of the devil.
Oh, I know that. I speak at churches all the time, so I've gotten the looks. And some people, half of the people will cheer and clap, and the other half will be very upset.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because I'm there to plant the seed, and I'm there to remind you that it's your duty and responsibility to give God something to bless, and that you cannot use prayer as a crutch for not taking care of your finances. Like, at some point, you have to know that God is tired of you praying about your light bill. Like, that is so basic. And I'm just saying this, I may get up there and he say, why did you tell people that? And I'd be like, God, that was my interpretation. Right. But I believe in the parable of the talents. And I believe that we are all born with a gift, a talent, a skill, something that God gave us freely to produce wealth. And it is our responsibility to exercise that and use it in the world. And unless you are putting forth that effort, knock it off with the complaining and whining. Knock it off. Like, it's not even fair. Like, you live, especially nowadays, we live in a time where information is so readily available and out there for us that it's our job to go pursue it, though. It's not going to walk up to your door, knock on the door, and say, hey, here I am. You have to be relentless about pursuing it. And like I said, and I say this over and over again, I believe that God knows what you're waiting on when he sees what you're working on. So give him something to bless.
Ah, amazing. Patrice. Now, before I close out, I want you to tell me where our audience or listeners can find you, because I know that for those who haven't heard of you before, who don't know anything about you, they're going to want to learn more. So go right
Yeah.
ahead and share that.
So you can learn more about me at patricewashington.com. That's patricewashington.com. And I love, love, love Instagram. So if you also are on Instagram, that's my favorite social media.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It is. Seek Wisdom PCW. Seek Wisdom PCW.
Amazing. Patrice Washington. Thank you. Oh my
Thank
gosh,
you.
I'm so excited. Like, I'm still excited by the fact that we got to connect, and I realize that the world is becoming so much smaller because the people that you're connected with, I'm also connected to and will be, and there is something I learned. I know we said we're finishing, right? But there's something I learned about the reticular activating system, were the things that you begin to focus on. All of a sudden, then you realize that it brings more into your focus. So, for example, and I just recently learned of Brandy, and there I was hearing, listening to you having a conversation with her. Somebody just told me about Harriet Tubman. Didn't know about her before, and just told me about her and the movie that is showing in Jamaica. And then I heard you mention it this morning as well when I was listening to that particular episode. So I'm thinking, you know what, like the teacher will appear when the student is ready, and I suppose all of this is just coming full circle and coming into play. So I'm really grateful that I got to meet you, and that we're connected, and and awesome things from here.
Awesome. Same here. Next time I'm in Jamaica, I got to look you up.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you do have fans here too. I must tell you that you do have fans here. So I'm going to close now, and I want to say to my peak performers, thank you so much for tuning into this episode with Patrice Washington. Of course, I look forward to connecting with you next week. In the meantime, I'm inviting you, of course, for a one-on-one coaching session to create strategic advantage to drive your business, improve your personal life, and have professional breakthroughs. So coaching with me will move you from stuck to unstuck. If you're interested in signing up, all you have to do is go to henekawatkis-porter.com and send me a WhatsApp message letting me know that you are interested in having coaching with me. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. What good?